Marfoogle News live in 3, 2, 1. Some images may be altered or just a tad upgraded. Disclaimer. All right, what is going on, guys? It is Adam and K. Marf, and this is Marfoogle News. We're going to talk about the most alarming stories that have happened in the last 24 hours, including a ton about, the entire world is up in arms right now, no pun intended, about what is happening with all of, obviously, the Venezuela situation has now spurred on multiple countries to question if they're next. So we'll talk about how this is all kind of folding out, and this is not a good thing. I've said this last week. I said, man, this may have been the president's move to try to stop World War III. And for those that really don't understand why Venezuela would stop World War III, then there's a lot of catching up that you would have to do. But we're going to go over some of this stuff, and it should, by the end of the Marfoogle TV show tonight, in just one night, you should be caught up. Okay, first of all, Trump weighs using U.S. military to acquire Greenland. Now, Greenland has been talked about for years now. If you are just joining us, you didn't know that we wanted Greenland. We don't only want it strategically. We may have some ulterior motives there. There may be minerals there. That's at least what people think. Mainly, the president is now pointing out once again that he believes that Greenland is going to be crucial to our national security. And that tells you where their head is at, where this is one of their top priorities. And as far as why it's their top priority is Greenland would be protecting us from China and Russia. Everything from the Golden Dome to locking down our borders to moving away from NATO to pulling our guys back to doing Venezuela, all of this spells out that they believe we are about to get into a massive war, and they are fighting back. They're doing preemptive strikes. They are trying to knock the legs off the horse before it, the four horsemen ride. So this is really, really crazy that the Greenland situation is actually moving forward almost every week. It says Trump has asserted that the U.S. needs Greenland for national security purposes, pointing to Russian and Chinese activities in the region. Now, the articles and the very left-leaning articles are essentially saying, hey, the Danes have essentially said, hey, we'll give you more, abilities there. You can bring more soldiers. Hey, maybe we can work out a deal and you can bring over some more gear. But for some reason, the president does not believe that they want to expand their presence there. They want to control Greenland in entirety. I don't think that there's any scenario where they want just more, abilities. As far as some of the folks going like, don't we already have, a base there and things there? We have detection and monitoring. We do not have actual interceptors in Greenland. That would be very, very handy, especially when you look at a world map and it's between us and China and Russia, or at least in a very strategic area where it would knock stuff down. So again, very, very crazy stuff happening today. We're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about Cuba. We're going to talk about Mexico. Everything is on the table right now. First of all, I do want to remind you guys, make sure to go check out EMP Shield. This is the device that we recommend. I wholeheartedly believe that this will end up saving lives in the event of an EMP. An EMP, or an electromagnetic pulse attack from any adversary, would knock down our whole grid if it was done right. But again, they've also talked about open source networks, and Sarah Adams, they've talked about backpack-sized devices that one person or lone wolf could have and have a 5-mile radius and take out basically an entire city or a part of a chunk of a city. So if you want to protect against not only that, but also a CME or a Carrington level event from the sun, and have your cars, trucks, motorcycles, boats, generators, solar and electric, and even your Starlink systems, your satellites, your modems protected, then you'll want to get an EMP shield on it. This is the same company that's outfitted agencies like DHS, DOD, DOW, the DEMSO team, Air Force, FBI, the list goes on. It's actually much bigger than that, I'm sure, but half of it's classified. MarfoogleNews.com/EMP, and make sure to use the code MARF. 25% off while they forgot to take that sticker off. It's kind of like in Safeway where they forget to take the sale off, 4 days later and it's still there. Hey, you get that price. Plus $50 off with our code that's grandfathered in. That's $50 off plus 25% off. One of the biggest sales in 4 or 5 years. All right, let's bring in my co/internet brother, Dex James. You are back tonight. What is going on and how are you doing today?
Well, hello, Adam, and hello, Fugle fam. I'm doing just fine.
Last night was actually pretty fun. I rolled solo. Not only, we did this one together, but on Marfoogle TV, I rolled solo, and I don't know. We just kind of hung out and chilled. Got to talk to chat a lot more, so it was fun. And I hope if you only join us for news, join us for TV tonight because it is going to be a very good show. Dex, let's talk about Russia slams neo-colonial threats against Venezuela.
So Russia has again come out and, of course, obviously wanting to support Maduro, support their ally there of Venezuela, or what it used to be. But they said Tuesday that they welcomed the appointment of Delcy Rodriguez as Venezuela's interim president, calling it a step to ensure peace and stability in the face of a blatant neo-colonial threats and foreign armed aggression. Of course, they're going to say something like that. We firmly insist that Venezuela must be guaranteed the right to determine its own destiny without any destructive external interference, the Russian Foreign Ministry said. So it did not refer by name to the United States. President Donald Trump on Saturday sent in special forces, which I think we all know that story by now. We don't have to repeat that. But, understanding Russia's position here, but, we've talked quite a bit about this Delcy person and why would they take this Chavinista, person who's worked heavily with Hugo Chavez and others, even defending him, or no, that was Maduro's wife, but as a lawyer. But anyway, nonetheless, why her? Why let her be there versus taking, the other person that won the election back in the day and putting them in? And I think it's because of control. I think right now, when you look at it, he probably has more control by threat when he's got something to threaten versus putting others in there. Plus, I also don't think if he actually said, I'm going to put someone in, he would have to do that with the backing of the military. And that moves out of the realm of what he did legally under Title 50 versus moving into Title 10, which is more of either declaration or an occupation.
Yeah, what sway would we have over the guy that won, right? The guy, or I say won. That this is what most people assume is that it was juried to their favor, right? And the gentleman that ran against Maduro, lost, right? But this woman. Not she's got indictments on her name, so they basically said, hey, if you don't play ball, we can send Delta Force in and take you out and send you to New York too. So it makes perfect sense, Dex, that they're going to keep this woman in instead. And then it makes perfect sense that they're talking so much about Machado, right? Machado, she's the other woman who's the Nobel Peace Prize or whatever winner. She's the one who's like, oh, I'm best friends with BlackRock. Me and BlackRock go back to like 5th grade. Like we used to high five. We play basketball. We play like women's softball together. I love BlackRock. That's Machado. So it makes perfect sense who they're picking for this. Big money for the big billionaires. For that class.
Yeah, and it's also, for what it's worth, this is all temporary, right? I mean, this doesn't last long. The government, the way this works by design is when you take a leader out, it only takes a matter of time for even though they have continuity of government, for that government to collapse, and it will collapse because there will be warring factions inside themselves. There'll be, we'll be pushing buttons against the ones that we have indictments on if we wanted to make them do certain things, or they don't do it. They may flee the country because they don't want any part of it, opening up other voids and gaps. But what happens is the government ultimately does collapse, and then and only then do you then bring in you work with whoever you can find in that country, or whoever you have created for in that country to be the American ally, so to speak, and then you run them and you give them tons of money and you make sure that they get selected in the open process, and they win, and then you offer all sorts of deals to the country to be part of America or be partnered with America. That's overthrow 101 without literally rolling in like we did in Iraq, where we rolled in military. Yeah. And by the way, we screwed up Iraq because we went in, we threw out the bad guys and only sided with the good guys. And if we'd actually sided with both, we wouldn't have had the bad guys there instantly taking up arms and sabotaging us the whole time. That was like Bush's big mistake. So by him keeping the bad guys there and controlling them with a stick, I think is potentially a better option for the short term.
Well, yeah, I mean, and they have so many tools at their disposal to control. So, this is something where, besides the temporary running of Venezuela, you're going to quickly see tonight how this web is all of a sudden it's shattering, this web that's all connected to China. Like it's so freaking obvious to me and to many more that our theory of that this was all a long plan to try to knock the leg out from under the United States, and the president went directly at one of the puppets, the main puppets of this whole thing, one of the I don't know, what would you call it, a main pillar of the black market money that was flowing and that was allowing them to do so many different ops without being tracked and traced. Not to mention when there's no proof of it, when there's no evidence of things like this, when they do things very, very clandestine, then the president also looks like an idiot if he says anything and points to certain countries. So I'm sure they're very frustrated behind closed doors. They're doing the war scenarios that absolutely are parallel to our theory. All of their worst scenarios essentially say that our theory is correct, and then they tell the public, oh yeah, well, we're just getting rid of drugs. Yeah, okay. And then we have civil war fears grow as heavily armed far-left militias take over the streets of Caracas. See, I always think that there's some sort of op, I don't know which country this is, and I'm wondering, where do they lie if this current government, still in support of Maduro, but basically taking orders from the U.S. right now so they don't get Delta forced. Is this a group that is being paid by possibly a plane that lands with suitcases full of money and possibly paid by China or by Russia, and they're there to cause chaos in this new transition? I don't know. Dex, what did you think when you see this?
Well, look, you've got warlords, gang lords, whatever you want to call them, from Colombia that have left Colombia due to other problems they had there and are in Venezuela. So they've got power positions there that they're looking for control. You have factions even within the existing government. And at this moment in time, the government no longer really has much strength because there's not a real solid leader that is commanding from the top down to the bottom. So it is real simple for this to happen. And when I said earlier, it's just a matter of time before the government starts to go through this phase where it starts to implode on itself. This is the type of thing that happens. You're going to see these skirmishes. You're going to see these groups to try to jockey for power, or take advantage of something because they know they can at a moment in time. And that's why you're seeing what they'll call civil war. And I'm sure they're going to make it out like, oh, look at this horrible thing. But this horrible thing is the natural progression of how you overthrow a government. And in this case, it's exactly what we did. Was it Manuel Noriega with Panama? Took him out and then waited, sat back, let it collapse. Everything got bad. Then we moved in and everything got good. It might take a year, but it's a matter of time.
People have made that.
It's good for the people.
People have made that correlation, though. Panama was a much, much smaller situation, and it was very lucky. They already have folks looking at that and working out like that if this would work out like it did with Panama. Most people do not believe that this will end up like Panama, and I don't, at least. So yeah, good point.
Yeah, but nonetheless, I think the ultimate goal is if it works out that the largest oil reserve in the world that can produce the most amount of money in the oil-driven economy that we still have today, is no longer in the power of our adversaries and is aligned with America, and in our hemisphere. I actually think that's probably better for safety and security than if we were to have done nothing and it continued to be extolled and used by China and Russia and Iran for their good.
Okay, and think about this: Venezuela's oil and this network that they have with Iran, with Russia, with Cuba, with Nicaragua, with Honduras, with all these places, South Africa, even I believe, with all of these players that were on the board, North Korea. So imagine this. So say we're, World War II. We haven't actually declared it yet. And we find this huge factory that's making all of the bullets for, the Germans. And it's like, we're not at war yet. We find this factory that makes all of the bullets for the entire German army. We go and take over that factory, and it's now making bullets for us. That's how I feel like this was. Because this was the money that was fueling all of these operations that were going on all over the place. Operations like, say, this cell phone farm that was set up in New York to knock down the entire grid, the cell phone grid, the tower grid in New York when the EU was there. Like, those kind of operations take hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions. I don't know how much that operation cost, but they said this was no joke. Things like that need untraceable money to go into them. And that means black market funds. Black market funds come from black market oil or black market drugs, cartels. This is all connected. It's all crazy. Now, speaking of which, Cuba, not too many people have talked about Cuba until, as of late. Everybody knows about Cuba, especially the older folks here. They probably hid under their desks because of Cuba. But check this out. The Cuban president, by the way, they are screwed. There were 30,000 barrels heading to Cuba on a regular basis. Without those 30,000 regular barrels, Cuba is in a lot of trouble if they don't find a replacement for that. So check this out. Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel says Cuba is ready for the war against America. Check this out. I'll just play a quick clip of this here. Let's see.
Son las tierras imperialistas, es el petróleo venezolano, son las tierras y los recursos naturales de Venezuela. No, señores imperialistas, este no es su patio trasero ni territorio en disputa. No aceptamos ni reconocemos la doctrina Monroe, ni reyes
nor outdated kings for Venezuela and, of course, also for Cuba. We are prepared to give even our own blood, even our own lives, but we will make them pay a very high price. These are not times for half measures. These are times for defining our stand and taking a stand against fascism and imperial barbarism. Down with imperialism. So this is the Cuban president essentially saying that we're ready for war with China. I'm sorry, with the U.S. And I mean, like, this is actually really, really nuts that this is happening right now. And it's no surprise, obviously, with everything happening right now, with all of the connections and all of the web that Venezuela had with this network of not only cartels, money, black market money, and then the oil money. Obviously, something bigger was going on behind the scenes. Everybody has their own theory on this, and most of it is based on reading tons and tons of articles just from the last couple weeks. Do you guys get what I mean by that too? Most of you old school Fugel family members have been watching the news for years. Dex, we've been watching for years. Most of the people that are like arguing, because everybody argues, everybody's a professor once they've read 3 or 4 of their favorite, op-eds and articles. In my opinion, anyone in our community that has sat here in this show every night is more educated on the world politics than any of them, because they've not only read the last week of stuff, they've watched this being built for years. And we're not trying to put our own show up or anything. It is following the actual news that is relevant, and following it for years, you will know exactly what's going on here.
Yeah. I mean, look, Cuba makes total sense. They've got Chinese spy bases there. They've had Russian subs at their bases there. I mean, yeah, knock them out. That way, you know, we no longer have to worry about China and Russia coming up and rolling up to, you know, just literally a stone's throw. Well, a little bit more than that, but swimmable by an inner tube from Florida. Right? I mean, it is not that far from our coast, and and Cuba, I don't think really stands much of a chance in fighting off America. I think it's just words. It's sort of like Petro. You got this guy, you got Petro out of Colombia. You know, they're all saying, "Come and get me, come and get me." You know, we'll do it. We'll go to war.
You there, Dex?
Oh yeah, I've been here the whole time.
Okay, it sounded like your audio cut there for a second.
No.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, this whole thing is one thing after another. So we're going to cover the rest of this over on Marfoogle TV. It is going to be a very, very interesting show, especially with what is happening right now. I mean, this is big stuff. We're talking about World War in the next year. And that's not to scare people. That's, you know, most people, everybody here understands what is going on here. Like, this is not a good situation for any of us. So we're going to talk about that over on the other show. Thank your mods. Again, they are always awesome. They're always answering questions for the Foogle fam. If you're new here, thank you for choosing us for your news. And you can just stay in chat and you'll be ported over to our next show, which is a full-length show going over the last 24 hours of events. But you can also go to our website, to marfooglenews.com, and you can find a full bibliography of every single article, tweet, video, picture, document here. We will see you in just a few minutes over on Marfoogle TV, so stay right there. If you're watching the replay, all you have to do is click there. See you in a minute over on Marfoogle TV. And by the way, if you don't get the inside joke with Arm, I just did a normal picture of myself on a thumb. I was being lazy. It's actually one from this summer. And oh my God, I got emails about my arm like, oh, are you showing off your guns? No, of course not. Oh, yeah, that's not my muscle. That's the Empire State Building. It's not a Lego. That's actually what my muscle looks like. See you over on Marfoogle TV.